All right, so in this tutorial, what we're going to do is that we're going to do something a little different. So the first one we did was a person. For this one, we're going to do an alley. I guess I think of it kind of landscapey. But so this is the finished product. And I started with this. So we're going to go from this to this. Once again, if we go to that Y at the bottom, you can see a side-by-side before and after. Okay, so you can see we brightened it up, did a bunch of different things to kind of make it pop off. Like I said, we'll go through. It should be another like 15-20 minute little tutorial if I don't get too yappy. So let's get started. All right, so you should in Schoology, in the tutorial section, I think we're going to call it Alley or something like that. In there you will see this file. This is a different type of file. So this is actually a raw file. So this is shot in, I think this is shot in Barcelona with my fancy camera as a raw file. So a raw file is way bigger and has way more information in it, which makes it so you can pull more stuff out of it. So your dark darks, your light lights, all that kind of stuff. A lot of your phones you can actually shoot raw on them, or like DSLR. Once again, like I said, most of the time it's a really, really large file format. And so especially on your phone, unless you know you're going to use it for a somewhat of a project, I wouldn't recommend it just because it'll eat up your phone space pretty quickly. If I'm using my camera at home, yeah, I'm definitely going to be shooting on RAW because I can do a lot more with it. But yeah, for everyday stuff, it's not really worth it because the file format is so big. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is that I don't want to destroy this edit because actually I really like this edit. And so what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to make a copy. And actually I do this a lot, especially if I'm doing like portraits or things like that where I want to maybe have a color version of it, but then I also want to have a black and white version of it. So if I go down to my little bar down here, if I right click on it, it's going to pull up this menu. And I'm going to do a create virtual copy. So what that does is now I actually have two versions of it. So I'm going to click on the second version. I'm just going to hit reset, and that'll bring it all the way back to where we started. All right, so just like my other, I'm always going to start with my composition. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to my crop. I'm going to go up here, and let's do our best to kind of straighten this out. That looks pretty good. You know, one thing I can do is use my angle, and I know one of the things that's really important for me is to get this level here. So I'm going to use my angle. I'm going to pull it across, and that looks pretty good. It's a little hard to tell. I think we're pretty happy with that. And then I'm going to go a little tighter to kind of let's see. I'm a little happy with that. We might have to adjust it here and there just a little bit. You can always just hit auto, and sometimes that works pretty well too. I don't know, looks pretty good. So we're going to figure out our composition. Let's do O to make sure we're kind of in the center. So I hit O to switch this around a little bit because I want to be in the center. That's pretty good all the way down through here. Yep. One thing I'll kind of do to cheat mode is look up in this section up here too. So that will show me a little bit different version of what it's going to look like once I actually crop it. So I feel pretty good about that. So I'm going to hit enter. Cool. So one thing that happens, especially with architecture, our lenses are curved, and so sometimes these things get a little like out of whack. And so what we can do is that I'm going to scroll down here on my right side, and I'm going to go to transform. So I already have it open. So transform, and there's lots of different ways you can do it. So if I hit auto, it'll automatically do it. Level, vertical. So level will find all the things that are horizontal, and it'll try to straighten that out. If I go to vertical, it'll find all the verticals, and it'll straighten that out. If I go to guided, I choose what I want, and then full does a little bit of everything. I'm not totally sure, just being honest, the difference between auto and full. I don't know. I'm going to use guided in this situation. So with guided, what I'm going to do, I'm going to say, there's definitely a few things I want to make sure are straight. So I'm going to go I can use 4 different guidelines. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to pull that down. It's kind of cool because it zooms in. I'm going to say, let's see, let's find a spot. I think it's right there. So it's going to be there. Let's go here. Pull that down. Let's see, where was it going off of? Let's go below it. See if we can, there we go. So I can go to this line here, that wall in the back. You can see all of a sudden it pulled that. I'm gonna try to have this thing straight. Oh look, there's a bird up there. So that's straight, and then I'm gonna do it down here too. Is that at the bottom of the door? I think it is, yeah. So for the most part, that should be relatively straight. Definitely better than it was before. It did tweak my crop a little bit, so I'm actually going to go back and pull that down again. And let's hit our O. Make sure we're in the center. And I might have tweaked it a little bit, and that's okay. I think I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, enter. Cool. So let's just start by doing our just general edits really quick. So I'm going to start at the top and kind of work my way down. So exposure, obviously it's pretty dark. One of the things, like I said, this raw file, it's way different. So I can go crazy dark. I actually can go really bright, and now it looks like a super bright day. That's the kind of stuff you can't do with your JPEG files, but you definitely can with a raw file. So I'm going to go around 95, 1. That looks pretty good. Contrast, let's go a little more contrast. I'm going to bump that up to like 1. Highlights, it's a little bright, so I'm actually going to bring it down to like, I'm going to bring it down a little bit. And I can go back and adjust some things too. So you'll kind of see how, as we go. So I'm going to go there. Let's check out my shadows. I'm going to actually bring my shadows out. So I don't want it so shadowy. You can see already that's kind of bringing stuff up. So bring my whites. Let's bring those just a smidge. We're going to bring my blacks up actually a little bit too. Kind of get stuff out of the shadows there. Cool. That's not too bad right there to start. We're going to do our tone curve. So 1, 2, 3. So we're going to do that same kind of S curve as we've done so far in a lot of things. So I'm going to bring this down. I'm going to bring our darks down, my whites up. Creating that curve. I'm just going to bring this up. Oop. So if you do something that you're like, that's not what I was trying to do. If you hit Command Z or Control Z, it'll do a step backwards. So I like the matte look. So I bring that up. So I don't like blacks in a lot of my photos, but that's my own personal style. Cool. All right, so let's scroll down. What else we want to do? So now we're also going to get into the color mixer. This is just kind of my flow. This is how I go about doing things. You might find something different as you learn and go on and move on and that kind of stuff, but this is kind of what I do. I forgot to kind of talk about my game plan for this. So more than anything, I'm trying to brighten it up. This is my point of interest is down here. This is kind of interesting here. I like this bag that's down here. So I'm trying to create a couple different points of interest throughout this. And I also kind of like this light up here. So it's like 1, 2, 3. So I want to have those kind of things pop off. The vibe of this, I want it to be kind of warmer, definitely, than it was. All right, so this is my final product, and this is where we're at right now. So that's kind of what I'm going for. And so, yeah, I'm happy with this. I know just from my experiences that I'm going to use a bunch of different masks to brighten stuff up and to darken other things to kind of get it to where I want it to be. So that's my overall kind of goal. Like I said, it's always good to have a goal in mind and when you're going into these things, because it helps you make decisions along the way. But maybe that's a vibe or a feeling or emotion, or like you want 1 or 2 things to kind of pop off and what you're going for. So it's good to have a goal in mind before you start editing. So I just want to kind of clarify that. Reds, I don't know. I think we're probably pretty good. Maybe we'll bring them down just a smidge. And you're like, how do I know? Like, how do I know what to do? That's always a really good question. It's like, you kind of just over time with experience, you kind of just, it becomes intuitive. But I think having that goal in mind at the beginning is super helpful. All right, so let's bring our oranges down just a smidge. I want them to be, my oranges to be a little more red rather than yellow, because I want this down here to be kind of a more inviting, kind of like warm feel to it. Let's bring that more to our oranges. Let's bring our yellows kind of to our oranges too. So actually I'm going to bring that down to like, I don't know, 9 or 10. It's not a huge difference yet, but you'll kind of see it as we go. Greens, I don't know. Let's bring our greens down a little bit. It feels a little greeny on the walls, so I want to kind of bring that more to their yellows. And then I'm actually going to bring our blues up because I want this to feel cool. So let's bring that up to like a 5 or 6. All right, so now we're going to go into my saturation. So I'm going to pull a little bit of my colors down and bring some of my colors up. Remember, I said I kind of wanted this to feel warm and inviting. And so I'm actually going to bring my oranges up to, we're going to go extreme. We're going to go to like 15, 16. All right, so hopefully you can kind of see that getting warmer and warmer and warmer as I go through there. But that's about the only spot that there's actually a lot of oranges. So you don't probably see it affecting too many other places. And then luminance, I don't know, let's get my greens. Once again, I'm going to bring my greens down just a little bit. So I'm also looking the greens in these plants. I want those to be a little like bolder. So let's bring those down. I don't know, that's probably pretty good there. Cool. All right. So now I'm pretty happy with this for right now. Now I'm going to start getting into my mask. That's where a lot of kind of like the magic happens. The first thing I noticed right away is that this thing is blown out up here, right? It's super, super bright, super intense. I'm going to get rid of that. And so I'm going to go in here and I'm going to, let's see, how do I want to do it? Let's try doing an object and see if that works. So what an object does, it says, I'm going to kind of paint around it. And then usually kind of figures out the thing that I'm trying to get. And if I do show overlay, you can see, ooh, yep, I painted around it and said, oh, this must be the thing that you're trying to affect. Yes, yes it is. So with this, I'm just going to bring my exposure down because it's super bright. So let's see how far we can get it down. Let's keep going. You can see it's starting. I just don't want it to be the first thing that people notice. Usually whatever the brightest thing is, that's what people notice. Let's go. I want it to look relatively natural. It looks okay there. Let's try to bring my highlights down a little bit too. I don't want it to be gray though. So let's just kind of leave it right there for now. So I'm at 1.7. Let's go a little more. Yeah, 1.8. So turn that off. Already a lot better, right? Before, after. So we're already starting to not be the first thing that we notice. Okay, so let's do down here. I'm gonna darken this up because later I'm gonna want this to be my focal point. So by kind of darkening this up a little bit, it'll bring my eyes up here a little faster. All right, so let's go here. This time I'm gonna do what's called so I'm gonna go create new. I'm going to do a linear gradient. So what that does, if I pull this up, once again, I'm going to show it goes a linear gradient, goes in a line, and it kind of fades. And I can rotate this. I can bring it a lot of different places. Once again, it goes from 100% to 0%. And then this through here is my transition. All right, so I'm going to bring that back down to the bottom, down in this area. So I want this to be darker. And what I actually want though is I'm going to create kind of a V through here, because I want this to be dark here, and I want this V to kind of help guide us through there. So I'm actually going to, in that same mask, I'm going to hit subtract. And then I'm actually going to use, let's do a radial gradient to subtract. So now it's subtracting that space in there. Cool. So now let's bring our exposure down a little bit. Let's bring our highlights down a little bit. Let's do shadows. It's like 18. That's pretty good. I think our highlights is too much. Let's bring these back up a little bit. So we want it to look natural. It's your edits should be, if we're doing a great job, we won't even notice our edits. Like to the naked eye. Like we should be able to see, like we should like that's a difference, right? Like oh, it's gonna be kind of goofy because it's gonna go back to my original edit. But let's see. Let's bring our blacks. I don't know. Our edits should like add to the experience, not distract from it. So I feel like that's pretty good. All right, now, like I said, I want to make this bag be kind of a feature too. So right now, this bag just kind of gets lost in there. So we're gonna do another. I really like radial gradients a lot because they gradually fade into things rather than being like really intense and in your face. And so let's do a radial gradient around that bag really quick. Radial gradient over here. Yeah, I like the radial gradients because they kind of like fade in, and if you do it right, you don't really notice them. You don't notice that there's like a gradient or like a mask there. So let's do our bag. Let's just bring our exposure up just like a smidge. Fold this out a bit and bring that in. Let's bring it up, and then let's actually warm it up a little bit. Let's just bring our exposure up to, it's not too bad. And this is when we're like, you're like, did you even do anything? Yeah, I brought it up just a little bit. So like I said, I don't want it to be obvious that I did it. That's pretty good there. Okay. All right. So then, like I said, I want this to feel really warm and inviting through here. And so we are going to kind of make a glow on these walls. So it makes it feel like there's a glow like coming out of the here. So now we're going to make a new one. Once again, we're going to do like a radial gradient. I'm going to have it glow onto these walls. And so, but I'm actually, let's see what happens. So let's do, we're just going to adjust our temperature a little bit. So like 30, 40. It's not too bad. I'm going to pull it down. I'm actually going to make this a little smaller, because I don't want it to go up here too much. All right, so it kind of has a little bit warmer of a vibe to it. All right. Let's do number 5. Let's do another. Our next mask. We're doing a lot of masks here. Our next mask, what we're going to do is actually, there's a lot of really cool stuff happening in here. And what we can do is actually bring up the texture in this area to kind of make it stand out a little bit more. And so I'm going to go in here. I'm going to hit radial gradient. like I said, I really like radial gradients. And so we're going to go into this section through here. We'll go even higher up, out. Let's bring this in. And I'm actually going to go down. Let's go check out our texture. Let's bump our texture up. Right, so you can see that stuff starts to like stand out a little bit more, even more now. So let's do like a 20. That's fine. 21. Let's bring our clarity up just a smidge. There we go. And let's check out what dehaze does. If I bring it to the left, it makes it foggy. And if I go to the right, it kind of gets rid of that fog a little bit. So let's do, I don't know. I think we can just leave our dehaze where it's at. I think it looks pretty good. All right, once again, you can see in this mask, like before, after, before, after. Let's bring our clarity down just a smidge. Cool. Look at this. So these are the masks that we did. This is before, and that's after. All right, so you can see it definitely makes a difference. All right. All right. So I think we're going to go in here and do a little bit more to brighten this up. So we're going to go radial gradient. Let's go real big in here. So it's almost like this is already really dark on the outside. So instead of doing a vignette, because it's already dark out there anyway, let's just brighten this section up on the inside. So let's bring up our exposure. Let's go back up to the top. Exposure, let's bring it up just a little bit. And then let's bring our contrast up just a smidge too. So we'll kind of bring that down a little bit more, but right, so you can see that just brightens stuff up kind of nicely. And then let's see, the last thing I think I want to do in terms of, like I said, I want to make this lamp pop out a little bit too, so that we have like another little piece of interest. So another radial gradient, go here, let's rotate it so it kind of fits that space. And then I'm going to make it smaller so it's not in your face. All right, let's bring exposure. Let's see, what do we want to do? Let's bring our shadows out. Make that stand out a little more. Let's make it a little warmer. Kind of match the bottom. Let's bring our texture up just a little bit. Our clarity up just a little bit. Let's see, what else can we do? Once again, we don't want it to be in your face. All right, transform. So now I feel like I've done a lot of my edits. And I feel pretty good about it. One of the last things that I do a lot is to do this thing called color grading. And so this is actually something really similar to what like they do in movies. So let's get out of our masks. We're going to do a little bit of color grading really quick. So color grading, this is shadows, midtones, and highlights. So what this does is it kind of puts a colored tint on each of those things. And so let's just kind of show you an example. So if I bring my shadows down into that blue, like I said, this is how they do like color grading in movies, and to kind of give it that cinematic look. And so what we're gonna do is that I'm gonna show you what I like to do on, at least for this picture. So let's go check this out. So, okay, so if I pull, the farther out that I pull this, the more blue it's going to be. And if I rotate this around, you'll see that's how we change the color. Okay, so I'm going to do blue, kind of like a darker blue in my shadows. I like that, but that's obviously way too much. So once again, we're going to be just try to be kind of subtle with it, so it's not in your face. So I'm going to pull that down just a little bit. My midtones, like I said, my midtones are kind of in this area. Like I said, I want that to be warm and inviting, so I'm going to pull that up just a little bit. Let's bring that back to the oranges. That's too much. Let's bring it back. Cool. And then I think I might do actually my highlights in red, which might be a little interesting, but let's see what happens. Let's go to my reds, pull that out. Like I said, as I rotate around, you can really kind of see that stuff changing. Let's go, like I'm pretty cool with that there. So this is before, after. It's not huge changes, but it definitely changes things, right? It makes this outside kind of cooler and this stuff a little bit warmer. Now I'm actually just kind of curious to see. So you can see it's a little bit different than my last one, but it's also pretty similar too. That's the thing that's kind of interesting about editing, is that it's always going to be a little bit different every time you do it. Actually, I think I like a little bit more of that headspace up there. Let's try that. So hopefully you learned a couple different things in this one than you did from the last one. You can see that editing makes a difference, right? If you're not editing, you're just throwing points away. So our next little thing is that I'm going to give you a file and you are going to edit yourself, and then we'll put them all into a discussion board. We can kind of see how everybody edited a little bit different. So if you're trying to remember how to export, go watch my little export video again. And yeah, happy editing.